We think women need to talk more openly about money because money really matters. It shouldn't be embarrassing or confusing. Join the conversation. We'll be discussing a whole range of topics which will help you get comfortable with your finances. Money Matters, brought to you by AJ Bell.
Hello, Happy New Year. This is the first Money Matters pod of 2023. With me in the hot seat as ever, Laura Suter. Happy New Year, Laura.
Happy New Year. And I am one who loves the new year. I like the feeling of kind of fresh intentions, resolutions, fresh start. How are you feeling post-Christmas and excess, Danny?
I'm the complete opposite because I really dislike the new year because it makes me think about all of my shortcomings, and it also makes me think about my expanding waistline after eating far too many mince pies and drinking far too much wine over the Christmas period. Did you imbibe a lot?
And still am. I mean, lots of people talk about dry January, don't they? I seem to have gone in the opposite direction. I think January is a bit of a grey month, isn't it? I can't think of a worse month to try and start the diet and stop drinking and being better. So maybe I think January is a good month for setting your intentions for the year, and then you actually start them in February when things are a little brighter.
Oh, I like that idea because I must admit I do really struggle with New Year's resolutions. Although I have started running because, of course, AJ Bell now sponsoring the Great North Run, and I've sort of thought maybe, just maybe, I'll get involved in the 10K. So I have started running, but I know lots of people are making resolutions, promises to get fitter, healthier, more motivated. And we have a very timely chat with Ellie Webb, the founder of Caleño, an alcohol-free spirits business. It's a sector of the drinks industry that is just exploding at the moment. And Ellie talks about her inspiration for starting the business, the extra hurdles that she faced because she was a woman. And she also shares her confession, but you will have to wait for that.
And obviously, as this is the Money Matters podcast, we will not just be talking about personal health, but also on the cash benefits, the financial benefits of cutting back on alcohol, but also talking about your health of your money. So like I said, January is a good time to sit back and think about what you want to achieve financially in the year. Take a step back and look at some of maybe the financial mistakes you made last year, and some of the things that you want to fix and do better this year. So we're going to talk about how to detox your finances and be financially fitter in 2023.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about some of the key tips that I've been sharing with lots of people over the last sort of week or so, because as you say, January is the time when people start to think really hard about, well, the new year and getting it off to the right start, on the right foot, and also dealing with all those credit card bills which start to drop on your mat after Christmas spending. And one of the big things that I have been talking about, it sounds really simple and straightforward, but it's know your budget. And I don't think there are lots of people out there that I've spoken to who go, oh yeah, and are really surprised that just sometimes just putting pen to paper, just working out exactly what you've got coming in and what you've got going out, and then what's left after all of that. It seems really simple, but so many people don't do it. And then that is when you can get into difficulties, because suddenly you might find that what you've got coming in and what you've got going out don't add up anymore. And in fact, you're spending far more than you're bringing in. And that, of course, is when debt can start to mount. And if you have found yourself in that situation, if you've got any debts, do prioritise paying them off, and do look for some of our articles on our Money Matters website with tips on what to do. But I think one of the things that has been spoken about a lot during the cost of living crisis is making sure that if you've got any subscriptions that you don't need, that you get rid of those. And I know lots of people are sort of pared back, but the one thing that I've found is that some of those annual subscriptions, they do start in January. And now is the time to have a look back through your old bank accounts, figure out what might be restarting and deciding if you really need it. And if you don't, then make sure you get on and cancel that before it starts to just tick over once again. And I think another thing that can be really useful, because some of this is complicated and you don't want to be, getting pen out every day and going through your incomings and outgoings, because that just takes too long. But you can use bank accounts to really great effect now. I mean, they can tell you when subscriptions are due to be renewed, when your direct debits are going out. And they can also do things like help you save by that sort of rounding up. So whenever you spend £1.43, it'll round you up to the nearest pound and put that money in a savings account. And pretty soon that can start to mount up.
Yeah, and I think making some of those pretty quick changes in January can actually save you a load of cash over the full year. And it's about using some of these grayer, darker nights where we're not going out so much. People tend to stay in January to think, okay, each night maybe I'm going to tackle one tiny task, whether that's, setting up one of those roundup functions that you talked about, or cancelling a subscription, or opening a new savings account. I think that's quite a good way to look at it. But I think the other thing that is a priority for lots of people this year is kind of building a cushion for yourself. So starting saving if you don't have any cash savings, or building up that pot for the year ahead. And that could be another one of your quick tick off tasks that you do, which is setting up a direct debit going into a savings account that comes out of your account on payday with an amount of money that you think is realistic for you. And even if that's just, £10, £20 a month, to get into that savings habit and get some of that money going out into a savings pot is a really good idea. And I think January is also a good time to look ahead to some of the costs that you might have coming later this year and kind of factoring those in and maybe saving up for those ahead of time. So a really big one for lots of people this year is going to be their mortgage coming up for a renewal and the higher cost that they're going to face as a result of that. So it could be putting a little bit extra aside so that you've got some money to go towards that. But it could equally be much more fun things like a big birthday, a big holiday. I'm always going to bring holidays into this, but saving for those things throughout the year, I think it has a real feel-good factor about it as well, that then when you come to buy that thing, you feel like, okay, I've really put some time towards this, put some time into saving for this, rather than having to kind of deal with a debt hangover afterwards after you've paid for it.
Well, I am absolutely in that boat at the moment, because I have a big birthday and hopefully a big holiday coming up, because I turn 50 this year, which I just can't quite imagine. But there we go. So I have actually started saving. I started saving last year, and I did exactly that, just started to put £20 a month aside. And it is amazing how quickly it does start to add up, and how lovely it is to look at that amount and think about where you're going to spend it. And I think a lot of people are also making a mistake of not knowing exactly what they've got saved where. Because since we started workplace pensions, if you've moved around a lot, you might have actually amassed a whole load of different pension pots from your workplace pension, and you might have lost track of some of those. And I think January is a really good time to start thinking about where all your money is. So where are your pensions? How many pots have you got? Can you consolidate any of them? Will it help you save costs? Will it help you keep track of them? Will it help you, make that pot grow faster because you've got more in it? And of course, we like that interest, don't we? The compound interest. We're always going on about that. But it, on a bigger pot, it can suddenly look so much better. And now is a really good time as well to start thinking about those tax wrappers. Have you used all of your amounts that you can for your ISA, for if you're saving for a house? Have you got a lifetime ISA? Where is your money? Where can it do best for you?
And I think that, so this is one of my personal financial resolutions for the year, is doing that, but with savings accounts. So I practice what I preach in that I hunt around for the best deals for savings accounts. I'll open up, regular savers if I want to save some money there. What it means is I have not quite, but about 1,000 different pots of money with small amounts in them where I've made use of different savings rates over time. So it's not quite that mammoth task, but it is a task of, looking at what money you've got where, consolidating it, getting rid of old savings accounts. Cash rates have gone up so dramatically that it's a great time to be hunting around for a better deal, checking on your savings account and seeing if it's earning you the most. And I opened a new cash savings account last week and literally did it while the kettle was boiling on my phone. Download an app, set it up. It's so quick to do now. So I think before we used to think of having to print off paperwork or it just being a massive hassle to do. Now it is literally something you can do while you make a cup of tea. Obviously, you need to make sure that you're definitely paying attention to the T's and C's and what you're signing up to, but it's a much quicker task that you can do now. And the same for investing as well. So if one of your, financial New Year's resolutions is to start investing this year, then get started. You can research the kind of platform that you want to use. Obviously, we have a slight bias towards AJ Bell or Doddle, but it is free choice. But it's best to just get started. And even if you're setting up, most will allow you to save £25 a month. You could just start with that, set up the direct debit, get used to it, and get going from there. And I think quite often people wait for the ideal time to start investing or the perfect time in markets or until they've got loads of money behind them. But actually, I think maybe you can use some of the energy from January to just do it and just set it up and just get going. Just don't put all of your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been put off as well by the headlines that they've seen over the last year in particular, because I think during the pandemic, we got more attuned to talking about money. Lots of people maybe started investing for the first time. And I think because now you can take a look at your investments on an app and you can see almost real time how they're going up and down, as the case is probably been over the last few months. And I think one thing that we always say, and so many people say, and that's because it is true, you shouldn't try and time the markets. That's not where success is. It's not about timing the markets, it's about time in the markets. So if you just start and just think about making sure that you've got a real range of investments, that you know the kind of risk profile that you want, and just put your money in, just make a start, because that is where you're really going to see the difference. And I think, don't just buy one stock, don't just buy Tesla, because I know quite a lot of people have been talking about Tesla recently and it's lost quite a lot in terms of its stock market valuation. But make sure that you're buying a whole range of different things, or, maybe go for a fund. There are lots of funds out there that will do that job for you. And I think that, that's really important. And that is all part of the bigger picture as well, because inflation is going to stick around. If you've got your mortgage payment, as you were saying earlier, if a fixed rate is going to come to an end, then, the payments are likely to go up. And also, it's not just the big picture in terms of, the economy, whether it be in the UK or whether it be globally, but it's also your big picture. Is there anything that's going to happen to you over the next year? Are you getting married? If you are, congratulations. Maybe you've got a child on the way, and again, congratulations. Wow. Maybe you're retiring, which, right about now sounds really quite nice, but it's a huge life change, and all of those things, they need you to really start thinking about your finances earlier. And you were brilliant at that when you had your child, because you were really thinking about how it was going to impact your finances months before.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, that's easy to do in my job, and also then the pandemic came along and squashed all ways of me spending money. So that was meant that I had quite frugal maternity leave. But yeah, I think it's about looking ahead to some of those things. So personally, my mortgage is coming up around this time next year. That's quite a looming thing on the horizon, because rates will have gone up dramatically from when I fixed what will be 5 years ago at that point. So that's a big thing that I've got on my horizon now. That's a year away. There's nothing I can do about it right now, but I can start kind of saving some money towards it to maybe pay off a bit extra on my mortgage, or work out ways where I'm going to be able to afford that additional cost. But I do have a lovely thing coming down the pipe of some free childcare hours. So my crippling childcare costs will get slightly cheaper. So it's also factoring in some of the positive things like that. So at that point, I will have a little bit extra money each month. Granted, probably going to get eaten up by those big mortgage payments. But even so, it's about factoring in some of those things and working out how you're going to manage them across the year.
Tuition costs, that is one of the things which is due to come to an end for me, because my eldest is doing her GCSEs in May, and we've been paying for a tutor because COVID just caused huge problems. So I am looking forward to having a little bit of extra cash left over at the end of the month from that. But another way that I have been saving money already this January is because my husband is doing dry January. He does it every year, and he's just brilliant at it. I'm not so great, and I find January quite tricky. So I'm not cutting out, but I am cutting back. And my last supermarket shop came in a heck of a lot cheaper than the previous one. And I know that Christmas was involved, but still, it was a nice surprise.
Yeah, I think quite a few people are making those cutbacks. For me, it's meat. I mean, it's got so much more expensive at the supermarket. So we've decided to eat a bit less, maybe have it as a kind of weekend treat, and eat much more vegetarian to try and cut down on that supermarket shop, because those costs are so large at the moment. But I think a lot of people are joining you in dry January, and non-alcoholic spirits have become quite the fixture on supermarket shelves. And lots of drink makers now have cottoned on to the fact that people want to drink non-alcoholic drinks, whether that's all the time or just want that as an option. So what does it take to launch a non-alcoholic spirit business? Danny's been talking to one woman who has done just that.
Yeah, Ellie Webb launched her business in January 2019, and it's been quite the ride. I caught up with her to ask her about the growing demand for non-alcoholic spirits and the struggles that she had as a woman looking to launch a startup in such a competitive sector. Ellie, I suppose the first thing to start with really is, what is Caleño?
Yeah, Caleño is a range of tropical non-alcoholic spirits that are designed to be used in a similar way to your favourite gin or rum. You mix them with your favourite mixer, or you can use them in cocktails, but they are completely alcohol-free. They are free from sugar and super low in calories. So great if you're trying to go alcohol-free or just trying to cut down a little bit during the week.
And I imagine, because we're now in January, dry January for a lot of people, we're putting the excess of Christmas behind us. And it's sort of a time, I would imagine, that you start to find new customers drifting your way.
Yeah, certainly. January is a big time for us every year. It's a time where lots of people experiment. It's a time where lots of people set themselves a challenge to go without alcohol for the month, or at least make it for a proportion of the month. So we definitely see a spike in sales around that time, because people are experimenting with not just Caleño and alcohol-free spirits, but also beers, ciders, wines, you name it, all sorts.
What made you start the business?
So interestingly, I actually had the idea to start this business in January. I used to work for a drinks company, and I was doing dry January myself, but still wanted to go out and socialise with my friends, and normally ended up getting stuck with a pint of Diet Coke or a glass of water. And I couldn't understand why that was when I worked in a really exciting, innovative industry, but it seemed like they just catered to people that drank alcohol. And I wanted to change that. And so I wondered whether I could create a grown-up alternative to alcoholic spirits like gins, rums, that I could mix and have in the evening. So it kind of started there just out of a personal need. And then the sort of development took around 2 years before I got it to market. So I launched in 2019, about 4 years ago. Lucky enough to launch into quite a large retailer, Sainsbury's at the time. It was sort of a time when the no and low category was beginning to emerge. It's very different now, but it was beginning to emerge. And so just grew the brand out from there, really.
Drinking alcohol, it's all been such a societal norm for such an incredibly long time. It does feel like something is changing, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at the figures, around 30% of people are either cutting back or cutting out alcohol completely. And that's for a variety of reasons. At the older end, it tends to be I want to drink less for health reasons. And at the younger end, it's just I never really picked up the habit in the first place. I'm more interested in going to the gym, working out, looking after myself, eating more healthily. So haven't really picked up the habit of drinking heavily. So there are a few different cultural sort of societal changes at play. And also availability has improved drastically. So I launched Caleño 4 years ago, but in that time we've seen lots of products come to market. Supermarkets have embraced this category, and bars and restaurants. So now when you walk into a restaurant or bar and ask what they've got on the menu, they may well have a dedicated section for non-alcoholic drinks that don't just contain soft drinks, Diet Coke, J2Os. They'll be grown up alternatives. And the same for supermarkets. They've got entire sections dedicated to non-alcoholic drinks. So I think availability changing has also really helped. There were probably a lot of people that didn't really drink very much or didn't drink at all who now feel that they've got something they can drink. And that in turn has meant that people who are starting to change their habits and drink less have also joined the community as well.
You were talking about the fact that you've worked in the drinks business for a while. In the past, it was a sector that was quite male dominated. How have you found being a woman, particularly being a woman launching a business in what was in the past quite a man's world?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in the drinks industry since my early 20s. I remember one of the companies I worked for going to present at a board meeting with well over 10, 12 people, and pretty much all of them were male apart from one woman who sat on the board. And that's just generally what I found throughout. And so when I started my business on my own as a sole female founder, that was quite rare. All the founders I met tended to be male, tended to be a bit older. I also remember once in one of my pitches, some of the feedback for why I didn't get a straight yes was to do with my age and how young I was, and probably because I was a solo female founder, it just wasn't what they were used to seeing, so they questioned it. And so I've just kind of got on with it and used actually my business to prove that women can be very successful and run successful businesses, and I'm seeing a lot of support from others in the industry. So that's been great. And I'm part of an initiative called Buy Women Built, which supports female founders and encourages people to buy from female founded businesses, because we're only going to grow if people actually buy our products.
You clearly have gone head on at any of the hurdles that you've come up against. Were there ever any hurdles where you just thought, this isn't going to happen for me?
Loads of times. I think what I would say is I think as an entrepreneur and a founder of a business, you have a relentless passion and just an unwavering belief in your business. And so even when I've encountered tough times, like the last couple of years, COVID in particular was really difficult, because it was the uncertainty of not knowing whether we were going to be able to produce bottles and get to market, and whether people would still buy the products. So, but even in that, I kind of had this desire to I will get through this no matter what. And of course, you can't predict everything, but I think attitude can get you a long way. So anytime I've faced difficult times, I've written it down, and I've reflected on it, and then come back to it later on and go, actually, I got through that. It felt really, really tricky at the time. I mean, just this time last year, we had one of our biggest disasters. We had a huge lorry fire. So a lorry that was carrying the majority of our Christmas stock caught fire on the motorway. Everything got destroyed, not just us, but other brands too. And so that was a major blow, because we were obviously going into our busiest period, Christmas and then January. And so, luckily, people that we worked with were really supportive, but it was a difficult thing to get through. And you just think, oh my God, this is a huge disaster. What am I going to do? But you do find a way in the end to get through things like that.
This is a podcast which is very much aimed at women. We talk about finance a lot, and I know something that a lot of women entrepreneurs talk about when they're trying to get started is the difficulty getting finance. What advice would you give to other women who are maybe just starting their journey?
So advice to women starting their journey. I mean, all I can tell you is the way I did it, which is not necessarily always the right way, but I think it was probably a sensible way. So I had an idea. I was very passionate about that. I kind of wanted to quit my job straight away, which was a terrible idea, and I'm very glad I didn't do it. People convinced me otherwise. So I actually worked for about a year and a half and in the background worked on. So just got up early in the morning, worked in the evenings and weekends to get it ready. I invested a bit of my own money. I didn't have loads, and I was also fortunate to get a £10,000 bursary that I'd applied for. That paid for recipe development, branding. Well, actually, branding. Use your networks as much as you can, because some of these things you can get for free. I managed to get an agency that I'd interned with in my early 20s to support me and front a lot of the cost and the design, because they were interested in the project. So that saved me money. So I think just making every penny you've got matter and go as far as possible. I also spent some of that money on my first production run, so 10,000 bottles. So I essentially used that money to get me to a prototype product, which then meant I could go and pitch for investment. And at the time, I was just landing my first contract with Sainsbury's. So I was going into 500 stores. So that helped me land my first big round of funding, where I was able to then hire a small team, so someone in operations, in marketing, and a person in sales, and then spend some of the money on social media marketing and events.
Just finally, how did you feel when you finally had that bottle with the label and it was on the shelves in a supermarket and you walked in and saw it?
Oh, it was like an experience that I'll like no other, that I won't ever forget. It's so much hard work, such a long time building up to it, and then to see it on shelf in a national supermarket just felt like everything I'd dreamed of, in terms of from just sketching the bottle when I first had the idea to actually then seeing it there and it had actually happened, was just a really big momentous occasion for me, and just proved that if you work hard and you have an idea and you're passionate about something, that you can make it happen.
Ellie, thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
No, thanks for having me.
Ellie Webb, founder of Caleño, there talking to Danni. What a great story that she had.
Yeah, she just absolutely fizzes with enthusiasm and something of a dynamo, I think. I get the feeling that she really doesn't like to hear the word no, but it doesn't mean that she hasn't made mistakes. And as always, at this point in our podcast, we have our financial confession. I know it's your favourite part of the pod. I always see you begin to smile when we get to this bit. But in this case, I must confess, I have done exactly the same as Ellie in the past. Take a listen.
I thought about this because I don't spend a lot on myself, and I think I apply that to my business. So I'm careful with money. I spend it when I need to. But I did think back actually to some of the early days when I was ordering some of the cardboard boxes that held our bottles. And you can hold 6 bottles in a cardboard box. And I'd completely forgotten that, or just wasn't really thinking about that. So I ordered 1 box per bottle. So I ordered basically 5 times more than I needed. So when I should have printed about 6,000, it was 5 times more than that. So that was a bit of a mistake, and just meant I had years and years worth of cases that I probably just wouldn't have paid that much for. So it reminded me just to think things through before I press go on an order.
So where are your cases now? Have you got like a warehouse full of cardboard boxes?
Well, I mean, that was 4 years ago, so we managed to get through them. But it just meant we weren't able to change the design as quickly as we would like, and I didn't want to waste them, so we just carried on using them for ages. Use them up in any way we could.
Such an easy mistake to make, to miss details. I am definitely guilty of this. When I was renovating our house, I would religiously forget to look at the sizes of things and order absolutely miniature doorknobs once that were meant for dolls' houses when I thought they were actually meant for our normal doors. And I continue to do it. I just get excited about something, order it, think it's a bargain, and then realise actually it's a miniaturized version of what I actually wanted.
I did that at Christmas as well, because I wanted some boxes to put sweets in for people, and I thought that, okay, I'll be able to fit a couple of Mars bars in, a few Twixes, and I got the box and they were jewellery boxes. So I fit a pair of earrings in, so it just wasn't going to work. So they're currently sat on my kitchen table gathering dust. But
they'll be featured in a giveaway soon.
And on that note, we are giving away 4 bottles of Caleño in our latest competition. To enter, all you have to do is follow us at AJ Bell Money Matters on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook or TikTok. We are dominating the social media scene.
We really are. We're on everything.
Yeah. The first time I did a TikTok, my girls winced, but there we go. Back to the competition. So follow us, like the relevant post, tag a gal pal that you would like to share a bottle with. You need to do that by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, the 22nd of January, 2023. So if you're listening to this podcast after that date, I'm really sorry, but don't worry, we'll have plenty of other offers coming up. 4 lucky winners will be chosen at random and contacted via DM by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 25th of January. Now, for terms and conditions, visit the website. Good luck, and we'll give a shout out to our winners on our next pod episode.
And congratulations to those listeners who won a copy of Laura Waitley's book from the last podcast. All of those winners have now been contacted. And in our next episode, we will be chatting about how you can prepare financially for a recession, as that is what's on the cards for this year. But we'll also be finding out everything you need to know about credit scores from the lovely folk at Experian.
Until then, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to your pods.
See you next time.
Before you go, please remember this podcast is for educational purposes, and the views expressed don't necessarily reflect those of AJ Bell. The podcast isn't telling you whether certain investments are suitable or not. And don't forget that the value of investments can change, and you can lose money as well as make it. It's also important to remember that tax rules apply, and that the way an investment performed in the past may not be the same as how it behaves in the future. If you want help, go see a qualified financial advisor.